On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we're going to be giving you a tactical breakdown of all of the Premier League's weekend action. It was a reduced schedule again, but there was still 18 goals across all four games for us to talk about, including huge 4 and 5-0 victories for Liverpool and Arsenal as they chased down that Premier League title. Toney's return brought 3 points home for the Bees, and Sheffield United picked up a huge point in the relegation clash thanks to the latest goal in Premier League history. And make sure, as always, you stick around towards the end of the episode because there will be more rounds of Guess the Player, trying to guess the player from their previous clubs and their previous teammates for you to play along at home as well.
Welcome back to the Football Fellowship podcast. That was Toby with the intro, and my name is Mevin. And as Toby said, a reduced fixtures this weekend. However, the first place to start is at the Emirates, as Arsenal, on the back of what was some iffy fixtures, going away when the winter break, come back looking much rejuvenated as they thrash a helpless Crystal Palace 5-0 on the day. Toby, what did you make of Arsenal's performance, and do you think that they were rejuvenated like I thought myself?
Yeah, I think that break that we had, obviously there were fixtures last weekend where we weren't involved. That extra break really did come at the right time. We were struggling to put away chances. We weren't even creating too many chances either in some of those games. We have had a few problems in recent weeks, and I think this was the right fixture. A home game against a team who haven't been performing either too well as of late, with a nice long break, and it just meant we could have a bit of a reset. And I think that's what I really noticed. I don't think there was too much change, particularly, especially in the way that Arsenal did set up. It was as expected, the normal sort of starting lineup with Trossard starting besides Martinelli, I suppose was the only notable change. And as we always expect, Zinchenko inverting alongside Rice, the wingers nice and wide, Odegaard and Havertz pushing up to make a front five at times. And I think it was a good performance. I surprisingly, for a 5-0 victory, I don't think it was incredible. I think it was just a good, solid performance, and not, like I said, not too much change, which is strange considering the results and how much that did change. Previously, we were struggling to win, not picking up points, and then we come and do a 5-0 victory.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where you just come back after the break and the lads, they just look completely refreshed to me. And I know what you mean about the performance. You know, it wasn't anything breathtaking for a 5-0 win, but I thought, you know what, Arsenal were really, really solid. And I wasn't sure if it was too much Arsenal doing everything good or Crystal Palace, in my opinion, doing a lot of bad on that day. Because of the fact that I just thought that any time Arsenal got the ball, that they looked like a threat. They were popping it in and around Crystal Palace, the area very nicely. And I thought there was a bit of a tempo and a flow to Arsenal's game, which previously it has been missing. But also, most importantly for Arsenal, the final product was there. So much talk over this January and late December has been about, do Arsenal need a striker? You know, are they clinical enough in front of goal? And when you put in the 5-0 performance like you did against Crystal Palace, I think it's very easy to just brush it off. But I think what a lot of people are saying about you just need to be a bit more clinical. You have the players, you have the quality. And I think that's exactly what we saw. I think Trossard coming in, just being that clinical ruthlessness in front of goal is exactly what you needed. But surprisingly enough, it came in the form of set pieces, 2 set pieces in front of goal. And I think Gabriel was causing absolute havoc. 2 goals, well, 1 goal actually got given his own goal, which I thought was quite harsh, and definitely caused me a lot of trouble in terms of my fantasy football. But Arsenal from set pieces, has this been something that you've been seeing all season?
Yeah, I'd say there's been 3 things that have been consistently good with Arsenal this season. One being possession, keeping the ball hasn't been an issue. The second being our defensive solidity. As you have said, we have been very solid, I think, all season, especially in the midfield third, with Declan Rice coming in. And the third, and probably the most important in this game, was the set pieces. Most goals now from set pieces. We seem to have really, really clear sort of structures on set pieces and how we want to do them. Those sort of long looping curling ones into the back post, runs and flick-ons into the near post, and even some sort of where we're playing it to the edge of the box and trying to shoot. It seems we really have that on lock this season, and that was just a clear example of Gabriel. Such an aerial threat, always has been. And yeah, unlucky not to be able to claim a brace, but I suppose a goal and an assist is can't be too bad for a centre-back.
No, absolutely not. And I think actually we should talk about the goals now, because the first one, I think it's very well worked in terms of the fact that I think it was Trossard who was causing absolute havoc. I think Match of the Day did a fantastic piece on it, so I don't want to go over it too much. But it was the fact that Trossard was making a nuisance of Joaquin Anderson, obviously Crystal Palace's biggest defensive aerial aid in their defence, and also the one who wasn't marking anyone whatsoever. And Trossard was the one who was pulling him left, right, forward, back, moving him completely out of the way for Gabriel. And I think it was one where Crystal Palace defenders on another day, maybe they would have done better. It did feel like a side who were very tired, who didn't really want it, and Arsenal did, after their winter break, rejuvenated, like you said yourself. I think they just wanted it, and I think Gabriel, epitome of that. And we've seen him get a couple of goals already this season. Exactly the same for the second one as well. I think, like I said, it was a bit unfortunate the fact that Henderson ended up getting the own goal, but I think it was one where Arsenal just to a T absolutely destroyed them. And then the third one as well, but this time a corner from Crystal Palace themselves, and the fact that Arsenal countered really quickly, and it was that distribution from Reyes straight to Jesus and then back out to Martinelli. Something we've been talking about all season, about the fact that Mikel Arteta wants his goalkeeper to be proactive and involved in the play, and he was for this third goal as well.
Yeah, I think it's those. So those first two goals, obviously set pieces. The next three, one from Trossard and two from Martinelli, both really well taken. And I think that's quite an important point, and a lot of conjecture, obviously, of us talking about Arsenal needing a striker, needing a clinical striker. But I think in those last few weeks, the chances that have been missed have not really been from our striker. They haven't particularly always been from Jesus or Nketiah. Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, Havertz, they have all missed a good handful of chances in those games where our XG has been high, our chance creation has been high, but we haven't been able to put the ball in the net. So I think just to say we need a striker who scores goals, I think is really reductive in the terms of what we have been missing in the last few games. And I think this game has shown that. Those last three goals were all really well taken. And I think the difference was that they really took their time. Martinelli especially, both of them were really quick breaks. He was at a pretty tight angle. There were defenders coming, and he was still able to put it literally right in the bottom corner. He looked up, took his time, and I think that's the first time we've seen that, not just from Martinelli, but a few of the Arsenal forwards in recent weeks. I do think, I'm not using that as an excuse for my love for Gabriel Jesus, that we do sometimes need a striker who's a bit more clinical. Don't get that mistaken. I don't think he's a good finisher generally, but I think his link play and what he does besides finishing is so key to us that we can't just bring in someone who's a clinical goal scorer and cannot do that, because I think that will ultimately make us worse. Last season, a lot of our goals were coming from Martinelli, Saka and Odegaard, and that's where the numbers have dropped, not particularly our strikers' output.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. Yeah, my opinion on it. I think, that front three as well has the potential to be world class, and on its day is, but they aren't inconsistently enough. And I think in front of goal, you just need one of Saka, Martinelli, or Jesus to step up and score 20 goals this season. I think that's what you need. And to be fair, Martinelli and Saka are young enough where they can still develop into those strikers. But I think for Martinelli's two goals at the end, I think he will not have more space and more times in those areas of the pitch. Really dangerous behind the back line of Crystal Palace, and he just has all the time in the world. I thought it was really, really bad from Crystal Palace, because 3-0 on the day, you kind of go, oh, you know what, it's fine. It's a bad day. We haven't been performing very well. We have a few injuries. We can brush this off. Away to the Arsenal can happen. But then the fact that, in the 93rd and the 94th minute, they concede two back-to-back goals within the space of a minute, I think is really poor from Crystal Palace perspective. And then not only the performance, but then the scoreline hampers you as well. And then that adds even more pressure to Palace, who I thought on the day were extremely, extremely poor. Like I said, I don't think they wanted it whatsoever. I thought Arsenal, this is a perfect game for Arsenal really to come back after their winter break and their time off. What did you make of Palace? Because it's one where the fans were protesting during the game, after the game. They were shouting for Patrick Vieira to come back, a sign saying they won the Yankees out, Steve Parish out. And it just wasn't their day, but all around they were just really, really poor, weren't they?
Yeah, it was not a good day at the office. I will give them credit that I think in that first half an hour, they did actually restrict us to not many chances at all. I think they did set up very defensively, playing a 5-back. They had Klein and Mitchell as wing-backs, and then they obviously had Richards come in as the right centre-back. And I think for that first half an hour, they did have a good setup. They were looking to do a really low block and try and counter when they could. It was a clear game plan. We scored early, and I think that probably put a big sort of halt in those plans. They did have to come out a little bit more. As the game progressed on, they started to come out a lot more, and against Martinelli, that space in behind, that is the exact play you don't want to leave that to. That's very naive for them to be able to leave that space in behind. I understand they may have been trying to push forward, but even then, that left-hand channel was just his, and able to get 2 goals very easily, as you said. In terms of Palace and the protests, I can understand Palace fans' frustration in a way. A lot of sort of recent transfers, they haven't really replaced Wilfried Zaha. There's still some players sort of hanging around the club whose quality probably isn't quite good enough. Nathaniel Klein, I don't think is a starting Premier League fullback. You've still got Jeffrey Schlupp playing as one of their main wingers behind Mateta this weekend. As you've said, getting rid of Patriot and bringing in Roy Hodgson, who has been a fantastic servant for the club and a fantastic servant throughout his whole managerial career. I think it just lacks ambition, and I think that's where the protests have come on, and I think this game probably did summarise that in terms of the young Arsenal team really attacking, really dynamic against a slow, sloggy Palace side that are missing a few key players, to be fair, but still I think the problems in Palace were probably highlighted, especially so in this game.
My issue with Crystal Palace, though, is the fact that we keep saying week in, week out that there are players who need to come back. And you're absolutely right, they do. However, those players can never stay fit. It's always 1 in, 1 out, and they can never get their best 11 on the pitch. I think I saw a stat saying that Elise and Eze, but they've only played together 3 times this season. They only started games. And I just think to myself, for 2 players of absolute quality, like you mentioned, losing Wilfried Zaha in the summer, you want to replace them. You got 2 perfectly great players, with a really high ceiling who can replace them, but they can never be on the pitch at the same time, which is a massive worry. And I also think I do have questions about Roy Hodgson because some of the things he said have just been really confusing, post-match especially. There's been times where he's been asked about the defeat and why is he not including certain players. And obviously the most notable one is Franca, who came in the summer with a lot of hype around him and people were quite excited. But he decided to make comments not specifically about him but aimed at him, it seems, about the fact that he doesn't want to integrate young players. They're not willing and hungry enough to get into this Crystal Palace side. And when you make comments like that and you're also losing games of football, it just adds unnecessary pressure. And this is from Roy Hodgson, who's a very experienced manager. So if anything, it's just a bit perplexing, and I don't really understand what he's trying to get out of these players. Because yes, they're young players and maybe a kick up the backside will help. But it's fine to do it when you're winning games of football. But when you're losing, I think it just doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, with comments like that, it's almost adding fuel to the fire, and a lot of those protests were sort of a lack of ambition, not using sort of the young players, not utilising the really good youth setup that they have. So I can understand how that's just not helping at all, and I think one that really sticks out to me is the Conor Gallagher. When they got him on loan, he was fantastic. They were having a really good season. He went back to Chelsea, and they just didn't go hard enough to try and get him back in on a permanent. Because after that season, I think he was their Player of the Year on loan that season, and I think those sorts of moves are something that Palace fans need to see, and Palace probably do need to really just rejuvenate that squad, because they are slowly getting a bit scarily close to the relegation zone at the moment.
I agree. It is getting quite close as well. I mean, the only thing that could save them is that the fact that Nottingham Forest and Everton being charged with financial fair play regulation, breaching those charges. But I will say, the most disappointing thing about the game from Crystal Palace is you can understand not going toe-to-toe with Arsenal at the Emirates. Completely fine. Where Palace are, where Arsenal are, it's 2 completely different sides of the table. However, you go in expecting a game plan, and the game plan in terms of what they were trying to do, soak up pressure, I get that. But they were toothless in attack as well, and I don't think Arsenal defence had too much to worry about. I know David Raya made 5 saves. I thought they were all fairly comfortable, and this is the one big thing for me. No big chances, that's fine. But to have no counterattacks when you're sitting back and trying to counter is something that I just thought was really, really confusing, and something that Crystal Palace definitely need to work on when they do come back. Thankfully, they play the game on Saturday. The next game isn't until Tuesday. However, the next game is at home to Sheffield United, which could be a massive game if they end up drawing or potentially even losing that game. And then after that, in the league, they do have their rivals, Brighton and Hove Albion, away from home. So if they lose those two fixtures, it could be some really, really bad times at Selhurst Park. But Arsenal did win 5-0 on the day. I'll let you have the final word. Arsenal going forward for the remainder of the season, positive?
I think so. I know it's only one game, and we did still have those bad games. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be super confident going into every game. I think we've just got to carry on taking each game as it comes. It's such a cliche, but I think we definitely did in this game. I think it was a hard reset, back to our basics, back to what we do well. So yeah, just got to carry on slowing it down sometimes, not letting the game take us away, because we have got a very big fixture coming up against Liverpool, and I think that will be the true test of our season. I think if we can get 3 points in that game, then the confidence will be back. I think the drive will be back, and I think our title push will really be on. If it's a draw or a loss, it could. I wouldn't mean it's over, but it would certainly hit the players' confidence, I can imagine.
Yes, and we should move on then to our second game of the game week, which was Brentford 3, Nottingham Forest 2. And talk of a new striker, well, Brentford do have their own, effectively, with the return of Ivan Toney after his 8-month ban for betting. And it's one where Brentford finally win a game of football after their terrible run. They've had bad luck with injuries, players going to AFCON. But Ivan Toney was such a boost on the weekend, and what a performance he put in.
Yeah, he was able to score within, how many was it? 20 minutes. So I think that's all we probably would have expected, and all Brentford fans could have asked for, really. A lovely free kick goal, even if it was some debate afterwards whether it was breaking the rules to move the ball as he did, whether he should have been allowed to do that. Either way, a lovely finish, and I think this is exactly what Brentford have needed. They have been on a really poor run of form recently. Almost all of if Toney wasn't back, almost all of their forwards would have been out through AFCON or through injury. So he's come at the perfect time, and I certainly think that's an aspect for how they were able to get 3 points here this weekend.
Absolutely. And let's start with talking about the first goal for Nottingham Forest. It was by Danilo. And I do have some questions about that Brentford defence for this first goal. First of all, it's a bit of 50-50. I mean, the ball is kind of being here, there and everywhere. And Jenhout with an interesting clearance in which I think he's trying to hit it to the byline, but I think he ended up just scooping it right up in the air. And there was one where Ben Mee was under it, but Nottingham Forest player gets there first. Ball dropped to Danilo. And then I also have questions about Flecken, about why he didn't dive. Maybe he saw it a bit late, but I just thought after 3 minutes that was just an incredibly, incredibly poor start for Brentford after they were at home, and obviously they had the hype around Ivan Toney returning. But then he did get the goal, and you did skirt around the subject, Toby, and I want an answer from you. Do you think that it was cheating, or was it just clever from Ivan Toney?
It's really difficult with free kicks because the way he moved it is probably technically further from the goal. So I don't know personally what the rule is on the placement of a ball on free kicks. I don't even know if there is one. I'm sure you can't move it forward on a free kick because that gives you an advantage. It's closer to the goal. In terms of moving it to the side, the goalkeeper had set his wall, which I think was very clear from the goal. When it went in, you could just see that the wall was completely misplaced. Whether it was up to the goalkeeper to notice that his wall wasn't placed, he had moved to the other side, so he probably wouldn't have even noticed, or if it was up to the ref to stop it and move it back. I'm not sure. Will there be something in the future where that vanishing foam is a circle, so the ball has to be within the circle because of this Toney free kick? I'm not sure. I would probably, if it was against my team, I would be pretty annoyed, and I would probably think it should be retaken.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I honestly think that if the referee was watching Ivan Toney place the ball and move it around, he would have gone, no, take it back to where it was. I think because of the fact that no one saw it, I think he gets away with it. And I think to myself that it is clever because you see in all areas of the pitch, anytime a player or a team has a free kick, they're constantly moving it forward, to the left, to the right, more centrally. And I think it's one where if the referee was watching him, he wouldn't get away with it. But because he wasn't, he got away with it. And I actually think, fair enough for it, in my opinion. I do have an issue, though, with Matt Turner because, as we've discussed on this podcast, I'm not entirely sure that Matt Turner is a great goalkeeper. I think his shot stopping at times is good, but I think his placement for the ball was bad. And I think he very simply could have just moved Callum Hudson-Odoi. He was, for some reason, just to the left of the wall. There was a bit of a gap in between in which Ivan Toney did slot the ball into the back of the net. But I just thought to myself, it was weird that Hudson-Odoi was there. Maybe it was for the third man runner, but I just thought to myself, just put Hudson-Odoi at the end, and then if there's a Brentford player who makes a run down the wing, then he can peel off. But I just thought, I wasn't too happy with the ball placement, and I think it's one where they could have done better. But then Brentford do end up taking the lead after that. Not only do they get the goal, but it was a well-worked goal from the from the corner, and it was again very poor defending by Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I think overall in this game the defending was not very good. I think Ben Mee had a really free run on this corner, able to head it in. And then the subsequent goal from Wood as well. It was a really deep cross from Hudson-Odoi. Wood was able to get between defenders and a fairly easy header. And especially those two players, I think, are two players that the defences would have been looking out for. You would have hoped they would have been looking out for. Ben Mee has scored a number of goals from set pieces throughout the year, and Chris Wood, that is his bread and butter, those crosses in and those headed goals. So I was really surprised how easy it was for them both to score. And yeah, overall in this game, I think the defending wasn't the best. And then that final goal from Neil Maupay, I think you can't blame the defence for that because it was just a lovely goal, really, to put it bluntly.
I tell you what, I will blame the defence for that.
Oh no, here we go.
No, it was just, well, to be fair, I think it was really well worked by Brentford because of the fact that Toney dropped deep, and I think having him on the pitch just showed in that one play how essential he is because he draws so much attention away from himself that Maupay was able to be in the box on his own. And I think Obamadeli, he hasn't played too many games. I think he's a very good young prospect, but I think he showed his inexperience because he should have let his centre-back partner deal with Maupay, but because of the fact that he got drawn into him, it allowed Maupay to then, make the most of his first touch, which was, to be fair, exquisite, and then finish it in the bottom corner. I mean, you can't expect that. I mean, Maupay at Everton was horrendous, dreadful even. I think maybe he scored one goal, if even that, but I think Obamadeli should have just stood his ground, and then with that touch would have been nullified because he would have been able to take it off Maupay's feet very easily. But I will give credit to Maupay on that one because I think, he's had a terrific resurgence while at Brentford, and I think he thoroughly deserves the applaudis that he has been getting recently, especially in the absence of Obama, who is unfortunately out injured at the moment. But for Nottingham Forest, obviously another defeat for them. Kind of the new manager bounce is kind of wearing off a little bit for Nuno Espirito Santos. But obviously, as we mentioned on the last podcast, they have been dealt with a financial fair play breach. And if it's similar to Everton, it will be 10 points. But if that's 10 points, that means that they're then joint bottom of the league, same points as Sheffield United. And that would mean there'll be 7 points of safety. Do you see Nottingham Forest going forward as having enough to stay in the league, say with or without the point deduction?
With, I think they certainly do. I think they've got a lot of injuries and a lot of players away at the moment. And they still have a really good squad. I think he's a good manager and can get the best out of them in terms of getting enough. I think if they get a points deduction, they will go down. I don't think... I think that 10 points is huge. The difference between that is looking, a team normally needs 35 to 40 points to stay up. Taking 10 off that is going to be 25 to 30, which I think is not going to be... It's not going to be a good one for Forest if they get a 10-point deduction. I think Luton will probably get more points than that the way they have been playing. So for me, if they get that, I would be confident. If I had to bet, it would be betting on them to go down.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for them if they were to get that. But on the bright side, they do have Chris Wood, who's in fantastic goal-scoring form. 8 goals this season. They've also got Taiwo Awoniyi to come back as well. And maybe together they can really do something. But for Brentford, finally a win and some positive signs as well with Ivan Toney back. But they've also a player who came on the pitch was Sergio Reguilon. Obviously, they've signed him on loan from Tottenham Hotspur until the rest of the till the end of the season. Obviously, with Rico Henry out injured, they played Lewis Potter at left wing back this week. But Brentford just back to it on the up and kind of put the bad run behind them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see going forward whether obviously when Mboimo's back, when Sharda's back, when Wissa's back, when they have and Henry as well, when they have that full strength side, if they will start to transition back to a 4-3-3 that we saw at the start of the season when they were playing really well, or obviously with Mope playing fairly well at the moment, keeping two up front. It'd be interesting to see over the coming months how their shape changes. I don't think Lewis Potter really worked at wing back. I think we probably will see Reguilon playing wing back going forward. Maybe Lewis Potter coming back into a front three to play a 3-4-3 could be an option for them. But yeah, this game was definitely had some positives. I think going forward they looked a lot better with Toney there. He does make such a difference for them. He is their key player, their captain. Still some question marks over their defence, and so they've still got that to tighten up with. But positive signs, 3 points. It's a good weekend for Brentford.
Completely agree. And then we should move on then to Bournemouth 0, Liverpool 4. And I don't think it was the best performance by Liverpool, especially in that first half. I think Bournemouth definitely initially started off really well, and then Liverpool kind of grew into it. However, they didn't really do much with the ball in the first half. They had a couple of shots, but they were mainly from distance. I think Luis Diaz and Alexis McAllister to note, but they were really kind of, they lacked really conviction, and I think Neto really had them, and it was perfectly fine. But I think the big talking point from that first half was Justin Kluivert's tackle on Luis Diaz, which got Liverpool Twitter all riled up, and they were constantly complaining. And I think they had a fair point. What did you make of it?
Nah, for me, I as soon as I saw it, I thought I don't think that's a red. I think it was very strange that it wasn't a foul. I think it was quite clear that it wasn't the best challenge, but I think a yellow card would have been appropriate. I don't think it was a red card challenge. I think it's again one of those where it's stopped and you see the picture on Twitter and it looks like a red card, but for me, definitely not. I would say it was a yellow. Are you going to say it was a red card? I've got that feeling it's coming.
Yeah, I thought it was a red card. Obviously, I'm trying to not be biased on it, but I think Curtis Jones against Tottenham Hotspur earlier on in the season where Liverpool lost 2-1, that was very similar, and Jones got more of the ball than Kluivert did on Diaz, and he got sent off. So in my opinion, I think he should have been sent off if you're just going based on the consistency of decision across the league. However, I did see something that they've changed how they're doing VAR and the threshold required for red cards, which is, again, just a bit confusing and more confusing to fans because they're changing it mid-season. But we're here to talk about the game, and Liverpool scored 4 goals in this game. Do you want to start us off with Nunez first?
Yeah, this game was very, very strange. I don't know what to think of Liverpool because you scored 4 goals, you took all 4 chances fantastically well, but I think you played pretty poor. It sounds so strange saying that for a 4-0 victory away from home especially, and against a good side. Bournemouth did have some okay spells in this game and they have played very, very well recently. But yeah, after that first half, I just thought Bournemouth can go and nick this in the second half 100%. And then within, 5 minutes, Nunez scored. And it was a really well-worked goal. I think it was the best passage of play you'd had all game up to that point. Jota with a really nice pass into Nunez after Nunez had moved into that central position. And I think that was a key part of that first half, and why it wasn't working was the way those forwards were setting up. We had Diaz on the right-hand side, but he was very narrow. We had Nunez on the left-hand side, but he was very wide, which I really don't think suits him at all. And there was Jota almost in a free role. And I don't think there was any sort of link-up between those forwards in that first half at all. And that change, I think, that came in that second half where we saw Nunez a lot more central. Diaz was drifting over to that left-hand side, occasionally swapping with Nunez, and Jota was predominantly on the right-hand side, again, sort of coming in as well as an inside forward. Just worked so much better in that second half, and I think that first goal really summed it up. Nunez is for me, much, much better centrally when he gets in behind those defences and can finish as he did. And it was a nice finish and a good goal.
It's really confusing this season. It's like Liverpool, especially since Mo Salah's gone to AFCON, Liverpool line up with a front three and then they change it completely, not necessarily in terms of personnel, but in terms of where they're going to be starting. And it's just one where it kind of feels like you're feeling out the first half, and then the second half is when Liverpool really find their form. And it has been one where it's been quite frustrating to see so far this season, where Liverpool first half they're just kind of in the game, and then second half they really go for it. And you just think to yourself, do that in the first half and give yourself an easy second half. But either way, I think so far you can't complain with the results, and I think Jurgen Klopp especially has been really good so far this season in terms of his substitution and in-game management. I'd love to see what he says at half-time, because the like you said, night and day the performances between first and second half, but still not completely convincing. However, it depends on what narrative I think you want to spin. If you want to say Liverpool weren't convincing but still won 4-0, I'll take that. But if you want to say Liverpool won 4-0 and despite the fact they didn't have some of the best players available, I'll also take that. So I guess whichever way you want to spin it, I think it's still a win-win for Liverpool. Especially, I'll say it from the perspective of not having your best players on the pitch. Connor Bradley, first Premier League start, I thought was fantastic. Alexis McAllister in that six after the performances of Endo in there and unfortunately having to go to the Asia Cup. But since his injury, he's come back and he's looked really, really sharp defensively and offensively. And the fact that regardless of which three you play up front, they all seem to be working. And the midfield of Curtis Jones and Javier, the two young lads coming through, and you wouldn't really expect them to anchor a midfield away from home, but they have done terrifically well. And I think to myself, it's all spearheaded by the clinicalness of Diogo Jota, who for me has been fantastic. His first and his second goal, I thought were just vintage Jota. And I think the fact that, he got 2 goals from an XG significantly lower than Nunez's 2 goals, I think just goes to show how important he is. And there is a narrative going around Liverpool fans at the moment that if a chance falls on the edge of the box, who do you want to fall it to? Not Mo Salah, maybe Diogo Jota.
Yeah, he was definitely the man of the match in this game for me. I think in that first half you didn't get him on the ball enough. A lot of your play was coming down those wide areas. You were trying to get sort of the wingers or the fullback pushing in, or Harvey Elliott coming in, especially on that right-hand side, trying to get them to the byline and cutting it in. And just the way the angles of the pass were coming in and the cutbacks, it just wasn't working at all. And Jota didn't really have much say in that first half. But I think once he had moved into that sort of inside right, all of the play was just going through him. He took that game by the scruff of its neck and really changed it. The 2 goals he did score, both were very well taken. I think that first Jota goal, was very sloppy from Bournemouth. I think they really should have dealt with that a lot better than they did. But when that ball fell to him, he just was able to put it in the back of the net very, very clinically. And I think that's something you are certainly going to need without Mo Salah, who has been that predominant goal scorer for a number of years now. And I think it was the case when Salah was at the last AFCON. Correct me if I'm wrong in terms of where Jota was able to step up as well. And I'm pretty sure he had a good run of goal scoring then. I might be mistaken, but there was definitely a period I remember where Jota really stepped up. And it seems like he's going to be doing that again this time, which is huge for you. And the Jota's second goal, I think, was, like the first goal, a nice move, some good work. And once those forwards were able to combine, Jota spearheading that, it looked very positive. Even if overall, not great, but some really, really good attacking moments that can be taken away for sure.
Yeah, some really encouraging moments. I think Nunez looked a lot better, and it's so tough to tell with Nunez because if the ball, especially for his second goal, let's say, Liverpool's fourth, if that ball goes an inch wide of the post and goes out for a goal kick, then you got everyone saying he's not clinical enough, he should be burying that. But because it just hits the post and goes in, you got people saying, oh, he did really well today. So I think there is a really fine line between Nunez if he's clinical or not. But I think no matter what, I think Liverpool are always a better team for having him in the side because of the danger he does cause to the opposition. And speaking of the opposition, Bournemouth, I think, like we said, they had a very good 10 to 15 minutes at the beginning of the game. Then they kind of petered out and they had that great chance at the end of the first half. I think the ball flashes across the box and I think Konate just gets a touch on it and Solanke can't get on the end of it. But I thought to myself, if Bournemouth could have got that goal, it could have been real trouble for Liverpool. But on the day, they weren't able to do so. Liverpool thrashed them on the day. And I think it's one for Bournemouth where similar to Crystal Palace and Arsenal we talked earlier. I think, when you lose to a top side, and I think it's fair enough to just go, today wasn't your day.
I'd actually maybe disagree with that. I think Bournemouth will come away quite disappointed. I think that game was there to be won for them at times. I think if they would have come out much better in the second half, as they did right at the start of the game, I think they could have 100% gone on and won that. The first half we saw in those first 10, 15 minutes, kept the ball really well, some really good movement, some really good counter-pressing as well to prevent you from getting out yourselves. And again, in that last 10, 15 minutes of the first half, it was exactly the same. It was just as soon as they came out in that second half, they were able to get on the ball still at times. They just did not use it, and they were just not quick enough. It looked very slow. The ball was bouncing around. It was like head tennis a lot of the time. Neither team really getting the ball down and playing good football. And I think they really need to go and look at that second half and see where things changed, because as good as Liverpool were when they came out, and I think Klopp showed his excellence as a manager and how he was able to completely flip the game, and Liverpool did dominate that second half for sure. But Bournemouth, there must have been something they could have come out to do in that second half and take that game. And that is, like, as you've said, actually, I suppose I'm almost coming around to agreeing with you now that is probably the difference between a top side and a tied side sort of mid-table, is that ability to change a game and still have that quality to completely turn it around. Whereas Bournemouth, maybe they missed their opportunity to do that in the first half. But I just think if they would have done that in the second, it would have been a completely different game, and they had the quality to do so, potentially.
I think it's that cliche of, when you're winning, you need to make not winning when you're dominating, you need to make sure you get a goal to make that count, because if you don't, the opposition will hurt you. And I think that is what happened with Bournemouth. I do think that Solanke chance, he didn't really get there, but that flash across the box at the end of the first half, that was so crucial, because if Bournemouth got that and then went 1-0 up at half time, I think that could have changed the complexion of the game completely. I think Liverpool second half would not have just been good, but I think they would have been committing and potentially overcommitting the longer the game went on at 1-0, which would have given Bournemouth more of a chance on the break with Solanke and there's three forwards behind him. But I do think that, I think it's one where I'm sure Bournemouth fans would have come into this game maybe with a bit of optimism, but with a sense of realism as well, to be like, okay, we think we can hurt Liverpool. We're in a really good vein of form at the moment. It's only us and Liverpool who's got the most points in the last 10 games, surprisingly, going into this game. And I think they thought they could have hurt Liverpool, and they could have, really. But I'm sure Bournemouth fans would think to themselves, okay, but it is still Liverpool. At some point, they are going to dominate the game. They are going to take control. And when they do go 1-0 up, I don't think it's completely surprising, because Bournemouth didn't take their chances. Like I said, I think on another day, Bournemouth, maybe give that game a bit more. But you got to say, with the injuries that Bournemouth have at this moment in time, I mean, they lost Max Aarons in the game as well. I think they've done really well to get as many points as they have recently. But I don't know. I think to myself, Liverpool in the second half just came out and they were too hot and too good for them. And they didn't really need to turn it up to 11. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree in the sense that I think the expectations of Bournemouth and the fans would be realistic, that they probably thought, we can give them a game, see what happens. And I think afterwards coming out and not getting any points is not unexpected. I just think they will look at the first half and maybe think, we could have done it. We could have really made a game for it. But it was just the drop into the second half, I think, was too big. Bournemouth did fall down. Liverpool did pick it up. Complete change at half-time, really. And as you said, still some positives for Bournemouth and the fans to take away, that they are still playing really well, following that good run of form, even if a 4-0 victory, it looks harsh, but hopefully not one to sort of dampen too many spirits.
Yeah, completely agree. Not too harsh. Bournemouth will be absolutely fine going forwards. Then we should move on to the last game of this very short game week, which was Sheffield United 2, West Ham United 2. And there was absolute mayhem towards the back 10 minutes of the game. But let's actually talk about the game first before we get into that. Starting off with a goal for West Ham, which was a lovely take and finish by Maxwell Cornet.
Yeah, West Ham set up again in sort of a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, however you want to look at it. Ings and Bowen playing up there together. Sheffield United defending very narrowly as they do at times. And I think that sort of played into West Ham's fullbacks quite a lot, and I think we saw that in the first goal. Kufal and Emerson both have been really, really strong this season. Emerson especially, I think, has gone very under the radar, and a lot of West Ham fans have been saying how well he has played, and that's could be quite a surprise for some people. He didn't have the best time when he was at Chelsea. He hasn't really sort of found his feet in the last couple of seasons, but this season he has really, really picked up and been fantastic for them. And Kufal, who has had a number of assists this season, he went on that run of 4 or 5 games in a row picking up an assist, and he was the one able to create this goal. A lot of space out there on that right-hand side, got the ball into the box, into Ings. I think Ings either miskicked it or it was blocked. Fell to Toney, who again hasn't had much football this season. And it was a really nice finish from him into the near post bottom corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd even question maybe Foderingham, but I think the fact that Toney struck the shot with such venom, I think it gave the goalkeeper no chance whatsoever, not even to react to it. And then it was actually Sheffield United, and I was actually really impressed with Sheffield United in this game. It was Ben Brereton Diaz with the goal. It was kind of a scruffy goal. The ball comes into the box from the cross from the left-hand side, and the keeper makes a save, and then kind of just falls into the middle of the box. And I do have to question James Ward-Prowse, because I do think he could have maybe got to it a bit quicker, but I think, great intuition by Diaz to be in the box and get his goal. And it's one where, Sheffield United have gone out there. They're not going to say to themselves, okay, we're bottom, we're not going to fight for it. They're going to fight for it. And they brought in Diaz, who did fantastically at Blackburn last season. Had a bit of a rocky time at Villarreal, hasn't really played too much. But he looked absolutely electric. And it was actually Sheffield United who looked like they were going to get the next goal in the game. I was more impressed with the way they were playing. And I think if finally under, Chris Wilder, that I finally think to myself that maybe they've got a chance. If they weren't so far behind in terms of points, I thought to myself, do you know what? This is like a team and a performance, especially after it was 1-1, where it looked like Sheffield United were the ones going to go on and win this game.
Yeah, it was one of the best attacking performances from Sheffield United we have seen this season, definitely. As much as I was sort of saying maybe they didn't defend particularly well in that first goal, I think going forward they looked really confident. They looked like, as you said, they were going to say, yeah, we're not going to sit back. We know West Ham do sit back. We are going to have the ball, and they did. They had over 55% possession. They had over 20 shots throughout the game, 6 of which were on target, which are really, really good, promising numbers against a side who are in the top 7-8 teams in the league. So a lot of positives to take away, and especially in that first half, they looked like probably the stronger side going forward. Going into that second half, though, it was a mistake, of course, that led to a West Ham penalty. Sorry, James Ward-Prowse putting that away. And it did look like West Ham did a bit of a smash and grab with the way Sheffield United were playing. Do you think it was a penalty?
Yeah, I think that one was definitely a penalty. I think the fact that I think Harmer just put his foot out, and Danny Ings didn't even see the foot coming in from behind him. He just saw Danny Ings running, and Danny Ings didn't have the opportunity to look behind him to look for contact or play for it. He just got tripped up, and I think he put his foot there. He tripped over it. It is just a penalty. I think that was fairly straightforward in terms of as penalties go, especially in this new VAR world. Do you agree? Yeah, absolutely. And then, well, should we talk about the last 10 minutes of this game? Because this was absolutely chaos. Where should we start? Okay, let's start off first of all by Ryan Brewster getting sent off for his challenge completely from behind, and one which we initially got a yellow card, and VAR overturned it to a red. In my opinion, rightly. Do you agree on this one?
Yeah, I was going to say, I have no idea how that was a yellow card even to start with. It was such a bad challenge. It was 2 foot in the air, out of control. The contact, it wasn't super high, but it was sort of ankle and above from behind. It was it's almost about as everything rolled into a slide tackle that's bad as you could get. Really, really terrible challenge. Very reckless and a classic sort of striker's challenge, you could say. I hope you're going to agree that it was a red card as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was stonewall. It was the most obvious red card I've ever seen. Even in the Sunday League, he gets sent off for that. But then as a result of that, there resulted a little bit of a scuffle. Sofian Kufal got a yellow card as a result for dissent and asking for a red card, which is rightly so. But then, as Sheffield United go on an attack and try and get that equaliser, he then gets a second yellow. Do you think his challenge was a second yellow?
Yeah, it wasn't a good challenge. It's one of those where it seems harsh when it's a second yellow, but I think if he didn't have that first yellow card, I don't think we would be complaining about it at all. It was a very badly timed challenge. It was straight onto his foot. It could have potentially sort of stopped a move for Sheffield United as well. There's that aspect to it. So I think, again, the referee and the team have got that one right.
Okay, perfect, because I do agree as well. And actually, it's quite interesting to see that David Moyes didn't have much of a reaction to it, but he definitely had a reaction to the penalty on Areola's challenge on McBurney. And for me, this one was not a penalty. Do you agree?
I don't know what this was. Such a strange collision. I don't think I'd ever seen anything like it before, and it be sort of given and talked about. But Burnley, he wasn't going to get the ball. It had clearly gone over him. Areola had also missed the ball, but then Areola kind of knocks into McBurney and hits him. I think it was pretty harsh. I think it was both players going for the ball fairly, and it was. I don't know what to think. I don't know. I would probably be a bit annoyed if it was against me and think it was pretty harsh, but I understand when the keeper comes flying out and knocks a player that it can be given. You probably have a better opinion of that than me just talking nonsense, because I don't know what to think of it.
No, I think it's fair to not know, because it's so borderline of what is and what isn't. And when you slow it down, especially, and then you're seeing the different angles and the way the movement of the two players and the impact they have on each other, I think it's completely fair if people just go, I don't know, rather than going, oh, it's definitely this and definitely that. I mean, there are some grey areas in football. For me, I do just think it wasn't a penalty, because of the fact that when Areola came and attempted to punch the ball, he went under McBurney's left hand, which was in the air. And if anything, he doesn't make contact with him enough for McBurney to go down holding his head. And in fact, he doesn't touch his head whatsoever. And so I think it's one where he's definitely buying for it. And obviously he should be, because, VAR and referees, they are tending to give that this season. So he's completely in the right. I don't blame him whatsoever. But I think the fact that he goes down holding his head and screaming, I think that shows the fact that he's playing for it and it wasn't a penalty. And also, Areola doesn't make any contact with his head, which is what he's going down trying to clutch and trying to get for. So for me, I think it's one where, honestly, I've almost forgot this. If anything, it's a foul on Areola, because McBurney's left elbow hits Areola in the face and then he has to come off anyway, and Fabianski has to come on for the penalty. So for me, it wasn't a penalty, but I don't think Sheffield United fans will care whatsoever, because their team played much better. I won't say really well, but they played much better offensively, especially. Defensively, still areas need to work on. And it's one where they've got a glimmer of hope about staying up. What did you make of that performance by Sheffield United, and that front three especially, because it looked really exciting?
Yeah, as you've said, I think even if we thought it wasn't a penalty, I think overall, in probably the terms of the game, they did deserve a point with how they played. It's very promising looking going forward. They do really need to start picking up points very soon, because they are still quite far off. I think that, I'm not sure how many points off they are now, 7 or 8, I think, off. 7 points off, which with obviously Luton, Everton, Forest teams that are down there, they do have a lot of quality, but this is very, very promising for Sheffield United. We have said that before. We did say that after their Man City game, that they looked really good, and we didn't really see much following that. Hopefully that's not the case this time, and they can carry on after this good performance, keep it going, and pick up some more points.
And finally, on West Ham, there were some people in the crowd not very happy with David Moyes and the team's performance on the day. I do find it a bit confusing, because of the fact that West Ham are so high in the table. They're in the Europa League and they're doing really well. I think maybe it's more of a style of play and this general feeling around Moyes itself, because the football that West Ham play isn't the most attractive. But I think it's one where you can draw to a newly promoted team away from home. It happens, and I think West Ham can just maybe say today wasn't their day. What did you make of the criticism towards Moyes from the fans?
I think the criticism to Moyes is pretty unjust. I think what he has done at West Ham is fantastic. He has done a superb job there, extremely underrated. And the fact that they're still there this season as well, I think has also gone under the radar. He doesn't have a huge budget. He doesn't have world-class players, but he's built a really, really good squad with really good players that I think fit into his system very well. I do understand the frustration and the style of play, and I do know that can make watching your own team frustrating. We've had that throughout the years in terms of sort of Conte and Mourinho, those sorts of style of play. Fans don't like to watch it, even if it does sometimes bring out results. And I do think that did hamper West Ham this weekend. They have this really clear system of they like to play quite possession-based and quite expansive when they're at home, and then when they're away, it's almost the complete opposite. They really do sit back, sacrifice possession, and try and counter, and it's two very, very sort of polar opposite styles of play depending on where they're playing. And I do get that to an extent, and it has worked a lot, but I think Sheffield United away is maybe a game where you don't need to go all out on that sort of low block, low possession based. I think they could have gone there and tried to play as they do at home and probably would have come out with more points than they did. I think they probably could have got a win if they were a bit more expansive and a bit more ambitious, which I suppose is where the fans' frustration is coming from.
So you're saying it's not just about results, but also about performance. Well, I'm doing neither in the quiz because I'm not getting results or performance. Look at that transition. I'm getting good at it. Yes, it is that time of the podcast. It is time for the quiz. Guess the player we're doing this time around. First of all, we're doing guess the player based on their former clubs, and then we're doing guess the player based on their former teammates. Toby, what are the scores at the moment?
It is 7-2 to myself. I was able to get a huge 5-point haul on the former teammates with my Balotelli guess on the first one, which was very tasty. So that gave me 5 points. And then, cheeky 2-pointer. And you got 2 1-pointers to give you 2 points. So a bit of a lead at the start, which I will certainly take.
Yes, a bit like you in fantasy football as well. I think you're 26 points ahead of me or something. But don't worry, as we found out with the quiz, there is time to catch up, and there's plenty of time as there's only 1 week done so far. But this time, guess the player. Would you like to go first, or shall I, since you're leading?
I will give you your one first. I will give you your series of clubs for your mystery player.
Okay, fine. I'm guessing first. Off you go then, Dave. I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, so 5 clubs. Earlier you get it, more points you get. Very clear. And your first player for 5 points is Wigan Athletic.
Wigan. Okay.
I was just going to remind the listeners, because I didn't actually say that last week it was a bit. We did take quite a bit of time thinking in between, so we are going to do 30 seconds per club. And then we'll push for an answer and then move on if it's a pass. So yeah, when you're ready, and we'll go for 30 seconds from now.
Sure. So you're not gonna go on Victor Moses, because I went for Victor Moses last week. I'm trying to think who else played for them, and I can't really remember. So let's go for James McCarthy.
Unfortunately, that is not my mystery player.
Okay.
Your second club for 4 points is Aston Villa.
Ooh, Wigan Athletic and Aston Villa. Oh God, right. Obviously the most obscure. Was there a player who? I've no idea if he even played for Wigan Athletic, but he's an obscure player. Let's go for Alan Hutton.
Alan Hutton, that is a beautiful guess, but I am not that harsh, and it is not that player. Your third club, which I think could make or break it, is Newcastle Jets.
Newcastle Jets. Oh God, are they? I think they're Australian. I don't actually know for sure.
You are correct.
They are Australian. Okay, so am I guessing an Australian player here then? By the way you said it. But I'm not entirely sure. Newcastle Jets, Aston Villa, Wigan Athletic. Oh, my brain's in tenable mode. I have got no idea. So, let's... No. Okay, let's try it. Let's go for Brad Friedel.
It is not Brad Friedel, unfortunately.
Wait, he's not even Australian, is he?
He is American,
He
but we'll brush over that.
No, I meant someone. I meant someone else. There's a Australian goalkeeper. But anyway, carry on.
Your fourth club for 2 points is Liverpool.
Oh dear, Liverpool player who's also played for Wigan Athletic.
These last two clubs, so the one I haven't said yet, they're like his two sort of main clubs. It was very difficult to decide between the two.
A Liverpool player
Which to go last?
who's also played for Wigan, Aston Villa, and New. Oh, is it? Oh, hang on. It might be. Is it Brad Jones?
It's not Brad Jones.
Oh,
No.
Is it even a goalkeeper?
Why would it be a goalkeeper? Why are you so stuck on the goalkeeper?
I don't know.
He's also not Australian, so.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Your final club for a point is Leicester.
Leicester. I don't have a clue, mate. Leicester City, Liverpool, and Leicester.
Both of those, he played a lot of games. Well, most of his games for, and most of his goals.
Liverpool. So. Who have Liverpool signed from Leicester recently? Who have Liverpool sold to Leicester? Maybe not directly.
I can give you a secret sixth club as well, which might help.
Liverpool and Leicester City, and Villa. I don't actually have a clue. I can't even think of anyone.
I'm going to have to push you for an answer, Melon.
Danny Ward.
It is not Danny Ward. If I told you the sixth club was KSI's Road to Division 1 team, would that help?
Oh, is it Heskey?
It is Heskey, yeah.
I forgot he even played football for a sec. Heskey.
Emil Heskey. Yeah, he was.
That's bad.
I think he had a spell at Wigan sort of after Liverpool and Leicester, very briefly. Aston Villa, he obviously played quite a few games for. I think he was there for probably 4 or 5 seasons. Newcastle Jets, right at the end of his career. Liverpool and Leicester, yeah, 2 biggest clubs, lots of goals for them.
Yeah, that's really bad.
That's a nil point.
Yeah, well, that takes my points to a grand total of 2. Right. Well, okay. Swiftly moving on then. Are you ready for your guess a player, Toby?
I am ready.
Okay. Your first club is Mainz.
Ooh, Mainz. Okay. I don't think I know any huge players who have played for them. 2 names that came straight. My 2 names that came were Royce and Schürrle, and I don't think Royce played for them, so I will go for Andre Schürrle.
He's done it again. It's 5 points.
Yes, that is huge. Oh, that is hilarious.
Oh, maybe they're too obvious, these players.
He's just played he's played for a lot of German clubs, so he is always like a go-to answer, I think, for me in these sorts of things.
Yeah, played for Mainz, Wolfsburg, Leverkusen, and Dortmund.
Yeah, he's like I think he's probably in like a lot of these sorts of quizzes as well. So I think I picked up that he played for Mainz.
You've been watching too much of Luke Pingu. That's essentially what you've been doing.
Oh, the 5 pointer, that is hilarious.
On the back of my 0. Right, because
massive. Right.
Jesus. No, you're going again. Because that really wasn't the test.
All right.
Right. So, guess a player.
God.
Guess a player based on the teammates. Your first teammate for 5 points is Joey Barton.
Joey Barton. Okay, this could be a number of people. Looking at QPR, sort of late QPR, like 2010 to 2013, or City, I would probably imagine. He was at City, like 06, 07, something around then. I can't think of any QPR ones off the top of my head, so let's go that early City. Thinking Milner or Barry. Oh, I don't think either of them would have been there. Let's just go Gareth Barry. I don't think it is, but
No, that is incorrect. Your second player for 4 points is Kevin Nolan.
Kevin Nolan. Okay, so he's a number of teams as well. He was at Newcastle, Bolton. Oh, Joey Barton was at Newcastle as well. So probably chance it could be a Newcastle one in there. Kevin Nolan. Ooh. Let's try Anelka.
It is Nicholas Anelka.
Yes! That's huge. I was thinking City and with Joey Barton and Bolton with Kevin Nolan, is it?
Yes, it was.
That is huge.
I don't know how you've done this.
I've just found my game. I think this is my quiz.
We're going back to Tenable after this.
Yeah. Well, we need to go back to Only Connect, mate, because that's the one you smashed me on.
Yeah, well, I mean, the third player was going to be Dennis Bergkamp.
Nice.
And then hopefully we would have got Arsenal from that. Next, you would have got Steve McManaman.
Oh, wow. Where was that?
That was
at Real Madrid?
That was at Real Madrid, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. And the last one would have been John Terry, so Chelsea.
Nice.
Wow. Right. I'm a bit deflated.
Okay.
Maybe this makes great viewing for a podcast. I don't know. Maybe my just sadness. Who knows?
It makes great viewing for everyone, apart from you when you watch it back.
Yeah. Well, I won't be watching this back. Don't worry.
Okay. Are you ready for your teammates round, Mev?
Sure. Why not?
Right. Your first player for 5 points is Shane Long.
Okay. Shane Long. He's been at Southampton. Oh God. Southampton. Pretty sure that's a West Brom. I think before that. Where was he before that? Oh, I don't know where he was before that. He's been at a few clubs, I know that for sure, but I can't remember them. So, Southampton, sure. Let's go with, let's say Virgil van Dijk.
It is not Virgil van Dijk, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your second player for 4 points is Gareth Barry.
Barry, okay. So, what's that? Man City, Everton, Villa. Is he anywhere else? Oh, he was also West Brom. Yeah. Maybe it's a West Brom player.
I will confirm that all the teammates are different clubs.
Yes. Yeah. Gotta played at least for 5 different clubs. Man City, Everton. Were there any journeymen in there? Yeah, there were definitely journeymen in there. But also played with Shane Long. I don't know.
I will have to push you for an answer, Mevin.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go for. I can't think of anyone. You're gonna have to skip me on this.
Okay.
one.
So your third player for 3 points is Jesse Lingard.
Lingard. Oh, okay. So Lingard went on loan to a few places, but he was Man United. He was West Ham. He was Nottingham Forest. Someone who played for potentially United and City, but also Lingard, Barry, and Shane Long. Right, this is interesting. Shane Long's the one that's Southampton, but also played for Barry and Lingard, potentially a West Brom and Barry and Lingard. This is weird. I'm really struggling. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you connect it. There's nothing coming to mind. Come on, say a name. I don't even have a name for you.
This next, I think you're going to get it on this one. If you can get those prem clubs, which I think you've got, you'll get it here. And your fourth player for 2 points is Nicolo Barella.
Barella, obviously at Inter Milan. I can't think of who else has played for. So let's just stick with Inter Milan because this is the fourth player. And then also played for... Oh my god. Is it Romelu Lukaku?
It is
Oh my
Lukaku for 2
god.
points. Very nice, mate. Very well done.
Oh my god. Yeah, okay, so it was West Brom. I was going more with the Southampton route for Shane Long. But okay, yeah, and then Barry with Everton, Lingard. Yeah, okay.
Yep, that's it. Spot on. So
Yeah.
2-pointer there.
Who was the last player?
It would have been Dybala.
Okay.
At the moment, yeah.
I'm still not sure how I got that, to be fair.
It was quite difficult with Lukaku to sort of decide the order of teams. And I thought Shane Long was either West Brom or Southampton. Gareth Barry, there was a couple. And I thought, trying to find the Man United player that was definitely Man United was quite difficult.
Yeah.
So I thought Lingard was fairly obvious it was going to be United. But yeah, like you said, he actually played for more clubs than I thought. So that's 2 points for you. That puts you on 4 overall. 9 points for me, which just felt bad now.
Yeah, you should do, mate. You should do.
Which is a 16-4 for lead. So I'm expecting it to be very tough for myself next week, which is fine.
Yeah, it'll be very tough for you next week and very easy for me next week.
Hey, I didn't say that.
Well, it better be if you want to make this even worth watching. Otherwise, people are going to be like, "Oh, quiz, switch off now." I mean, Toby's winning. Or we'll see what happens. Maybe one of us doing really bad means that people want to watch more. So we'll see how it goes.
It is a marathon, not a sprint, as they say. Lots of episodes left.
Yes, but it's not looking good. Well, I mean, you already quadruple my points, but thankfully it is early. Thankfully, it is early on. But yeah, we should probably wrap up the rest of the podcast by talking about the league table because it has been a very, very long game week with teams taking the winter break, depending on what week they were playing on. So to finish at the top is Liverpool after 21 matches played, 48 points, followed by Manchester City, who are close behind on the same points as Arsenal and Aston Villa. How do you see the top 4 as it is at the moment?
Yeah, it's very confusing, this top 4 at the moment. It feels like Liverpool are picking up points all the time, but as you have said in numerous sort of episodes, and especially this weekend, not always playing amazing or playing amazing in half the game and not in the other half. City seem to not be as they were. I know we always talk about this run we're expecting. It just feels a little bit different. It feels slightly different this year. I think some of the sort of mid-table teams, I don't think they'll just be able to brush aside like they have in other seasons. Arsenal, again, still like picking up points, but we have had some really bad spells. We're struggling to score goals, which is strange for a side to be up there to be able to do that. And Aston Villa, I feel like, are a bit of an enigma at the moment. They were on a really good run, seems to have fallen a little bit flat recently at times. Maybe that sort of momentum is starting to drop. But they're still up there, and they're still certainly in contention of being in one of those top places. So to be this late in the season and still have no idea what could happen over the next even 4 or 5 games, I think is making it really, really exciting, and it's shaping up those top positions really well.
Yeah, completely agree. And I should probably have mentioned Spurs in that as well, who are just below Aston Villa in 4th, who are in 5th, with 40 points, only 3 points behind Aston Villa. And I should have mentioned them because of the fact that they are having a very decent season themselves. They're not too far off the pace, off the top. But the issue is that the teams below them are also significantly a little bit further off as well. So that's why I probably should have mentioned Spurs with them as well. But in 6th place, you got West Ham. In 7th, you got Man United. Brighton in 8th, Chelsea in 9th, Newcastle in 10th. It's a very weird one because there are 4 points separating those 5 teams, but they're all kind of hit or miss. And for teams especially like Man United, Chelsea, Brighton, and Newcastle, you probably didn't expect that this season, did you?
No, definitely not. And I think, like you've said, those teams sort of like Newcastle and Brighton, I think we were expecting to still be way up there. And I think all of those teams will be kicking themselves a little bit because of the way the other teams have dropped off. They could have definitely sort of pushed in and even pushed up to where sort of Tottenham and Villa are. Any of those teams, I think, have the quality and have shown the quality in previous seasons to be able to do that. So I think they're all going to be a bit gutted that they've sort of let it slip at times this season. especially with the way that the European places may line up, especially with sort of cup competitions and everything. It could be 5th place gets you Champions League, and all the way down to sort of 8th and 9th gets you sort of Conference and Europa League, which all of those teams will hopefully sort of be involved in. And it'll be a shame that some of those teams will have to miss out, because on their day they do show real quality. Out of those teams, for you, just trying to think about it, which one would you say sticks out the most as sort of the strongest, especially with the games we have remaining?
I won't say Chelsea, because of the fact that I mentioned on last week's podcast that the fixtures they've got coming up is incredibly tough, and the fact that they still don't have an established number one, even though I think Petrovic is doing really well. Someone who's going to score a lot of goals. They're still got Nkunku, but he can't stay fit. Chilwell and Reece James are constantly injured, and they're even considering selling Conor Gallagher, who's their vice-captain but captain at the moment with James out, who's actually performing the best out of all three of their midfielders, even though he's homegrown, and they've spent 100 million plus on both of the other midfielders in Caicedo and Fernandes. So it's a bit of a weird one. I'm going to discount Chelsea. I just can't see it at the moment. I do think that Newcastle and Man United, now with no Europe, potentially have the chance to catch up on the teams in the top 5. I need to see some consistency, I'll be completely honest, and I think I need to see them scoring goals frequently. I think the issue for especially Man United is they seem that they can't recruit anyone at the moment. Financial fair play is kind of hamstrung everyone a little bit so far this January. And not only that, they can't really let players go off their books who they really need to in order to bring their money in. And then I think for Newcastle, the fact that they're also having financial fair play issues, and they're also considering selling the likes of Almiron and Trippier, which in the long term I can understand, because Trippier's in his 30s, Almiron is 29. But I think for the here and now, they definitely need those two players, and they only should be letting them go, in my opinion, if they're going to be bringing someone in this January. Otherwise, it's transfers that can wait for in the summer. I actually think it's... Oh, actually, I don't even know now, because I've said that, but then West Ham and Brighton also have Europa League. So I don't actually know. Who have I not said out of those? Oh, actually, I've talked about all of them. None of them. I don't think any of them can do it. I think it's the top 5 as they are, and Man United could go on a run, but that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it summarised. I think every team is having problems this season, whether it's injuries or an introduction to European football or sort of like financial difficulties. There seems to be a lot of problems in there. So I suppose to still be in and around that context of sort of those 6th, 7th place finishes is okay, given how their sort of seasons may have unravelled so far.
Yeah, and then you've got the teams kind of in kind of no man's land in terms of Wolves and Bournemouth. But then below that, you've got Fulham, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest and Everton. And then you've got Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United in the relegation zone. So I guess maybe apart from Wolves and Bournemouth, all the other of those teams will be probably looking behind them just to make sure that they're safe. If any of them, apart from, let's say, Nottingham Forest and Everton, because of the FFP charges surrounding them, could any of Brentford, Fulham, Bournemouth be in risk of relegation this season, do you think?
I think Bournemouth will be okay. I think this run that they have been on is a sign of a team that will stay up. I think it's really important that teams are able to do that and pick up points consistently, not just sporadic sort of draws and wins here and there. I think going on a run, having that momentum is huge, and it's carried Bournemouth way up the table from where we saw them at the start of the season. Brentford, I think without the return of Toney, I would be really worried. But I think having him back is a huge boost, and I think they should be okay as a result, especially as players start to come back from injuries and they find their form again. Fulham as well. I always have a question mark over Fulham, and I'm not quite sure why. They do seem to play really well in some games, but then they can be pretty inconsistent as well. So I suppose out of those 3 teams, the team I would have the least confidence in would be Fulham. I think the other 2 do have quality and have a really sort of set play style, can go on those runs and pick up a lot of points in a row. But I think all of them will probably be safe. I think they will be able to do enough to stay up for sure.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think the one and only is maybe Crystal Palace, but I think if, like we said, they get Elise and Eze fit on the same pitch, then I think they will be fine going forward, especially with Roy Hodgson at the helm, if he decides to keep his mouth shut. But I think that's it for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you everyone for joining. If you are listening to us on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us out. Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. It really means a lot. Answer the questionnaire. What do you think? And also, there won't be any Premier League fixtures to talk about next week, as it's the Carabao Cup in midweek and the FA Cup on the weekend. However, don't worry, we will be talking about it, even though Arsenal aren't in the FA Cup because they got knocked out. Just had to get that one in there. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We hope you enjoy, and we'll see you in the next one.